Hi, everyone. Good evening. Peace and blessings to you. My name is Reverend Leah Alvarado, and I'm with New Thought Northern Colorado Center for Spiritual Living. Welcome to the season for Nonviolence. Each day we come together for a total of 64 days to practice a different principle of peace and nonviolence based on the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King. So glad that you're here today. Today is day 41, and our topic is the words we speak. Gandhi said, "Speak only if it improves upon the silence." It's amazing how often we see disagreements arise, not because there are huge differences in opinion, but because our egos cause us to say things that are disagreeable. In other words, our ego's scorekeeping makes us need to win points, and emotional and verbal violence are frequently the result. Our interactions, however, are not competitive games, but a chance to learn from one another and to advance the cause of nonviolence. In every interaction, our choice is always about speaking or keeping silent. When we are in disagreement with another, it's not a question of who is right or wrong. That is the field of ego and impacts any possibility of a loving outcome. When we speak, we should always ask ourselves, does it matter? Is this individual disagreement so important that we have to stand our ground? Or is our ego magnifying our righteousness at a proportion to the truth? We ask ourselves, can this person really hear what I have to say right now? If I'm comfortable that this issue is not an ego issue for me, what about them? Can they hear what we have to say? Or is their investment in their position so entrenched that they can't possibly hear us? Will it make a difference? Will the words I speak serve to heal the disagreement? Or will it simply be more fuel for the disagreement? Frequently, the best words to speak are none. Silence in place of the ego's need to fill the space is often the most effective way to communicate and always the most effective way to think about what we're trying to achieve. As we move into the silence, we will know the perfect words to speak at the perfect time because it will come from the guidance of spirit. So the first question that I have for you today, putting that in the chat. Hi, Resin. Thanks for being here today. So the first question, when have there been times in my life when my ego got the best of me and I blurted out something that later I regretted? How did that feel? So if you want to participate and put a note in the chat about your own experience with this, that'd be great. I'd love that. Yeah, so we've all done this. When our ego was in charge and we didn't realize that that's what was happening, and it flies out of our mouth without pausing, without reflecting, without taking a breath. Yeah, and those moments when we've done that, how did it feel? How did it feel to do that? And in the moment, I suppose it may not feel, feeling the conflict, feeling the disagreement never feels good to any of us because our true nature is love. Our true nature is the essence of spirit. So whenever we are having disagreement or conflict, there's always a part of us that deeply feels the dissonance that's there because of that. But oftentimes, if our ego is the one that's speaking, we are not even aware of it. We'd have to have a pretty high level of awareness in that moment to recognize it. We can look back and see, there was my ego. There it was, clearly. But usually in that moment, we are unaware of how we're coming across. But as you look back, how did it feel? How did it feel to express from that part of yourself, that ego place? And what was their reaction? How did they respond to that? When we're coming from that ego place, yeah, then they're coming from their ego place. We're both in ego, right? We're both having that disagreement, and It's just about being right and making the other wrong. That's what it's about at that point. And so the next question is, when I've paused and taken a breath or took a moment to go within before speaking, what was that outcome? Have you been able to slow down in those moments and take a breath before you opened your mouth? And it is so hard in those moments when we're angry and we're in that self-righteous place. We've all been there. And what comes out of our mouths is anything but loving. It's all ego. Yeah. And so, but have you been able to pause? Have you been able to take a breath, slow down, and then speak, or check in with yourself and then speak? What has been the outcome in that case? What has been the outcome in comparison to just letting it fly out without any awareness? Both the outcome for you and for them. What has been that result? So feel free to comment in the chat about your experience with that. So let's look at our affirmative practice for today and say that together. I will meditate on the role of my ego. We could just stop there. I will meditate on the role of my ego. You know, ego is not a bad thing. Sometimes we talk about it in spiritual circles as if it's a bad thing. And I don't mean to imply that, because it's not. It actually serves us in many, many ways. But it's good to have the awareness of when it's the ego and when it's not. Because the ego can take us spiraling downwards very quickly and create drama and trauma in a situation where there doesn't need to be. So it's just merely having the awareness, but really we should be loving our ego, just as we love all of our parts, love all of ourselves. It's not a bad thing. It's been given a bad rap in spiritual circles, and that's not necessary. So I just want to say that. So I will meditate on the role of my ego. How does my ego serve me in my life? How does it show up? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Particularly the next line, in conflicts and disagreements in my life, how does it show up then? What does it look like and feel like during conflicts and disagreements? Today, I will pause and take a breath, connecting with the spirit within me to guide me in saying and doing the right thing. This is the path of nonviolence. Yeah. So when we can stop and take that sacred breath before we speak, and it's not easy, this is not an easy thing for any of us. But if we can get into the practice of doing that, or walking away for a moment, stepping out of the space, let me just take a moment, center ourselves, check in with ourselves, then come back, if that's possible to do that. It's really going to serve us, and it's going to help us to not solely come from ego. Yeah. So let's just take a moment, taking a deep breath, allowing the breath to bring you into your heart, into the center of your chest, that place where the divine lives, that place that is our connection to spirit. And just checking in with yourself right now regarding this topic of speaking. The words we speak, becoming aware of the words that we speak, taking responsibility for the words that we speak and the outcome that it has on those around us. There's a common misconception in our movement, and I just had a conversation with somebody about this the other day, to say something like, my words can't impact you. If it impacts you, it's your stuff. To put it on someone else, it's your stuff. That's why you're reacting. And yes, there's some truth in that, but we have to be really careful about that, because we also need to take responsibility for the energy behind what we say. And if someone is hurt because of something we've said, it's important to take responsibility for that, to be responsible for our words and how they come across. It may not have been our intention, but it doesn't matter. The person is hurt by what we said, and we need to own that. So yeah, so breathing into all of this, there's a lot of energy around this topic because of the ego place and disagreements and discord and conflict. And so many of us run from conflict. We don't want to deal with the conflict. Yeah, it creates a lot of reaction and even trauma. So let's know for each of us that we are able to pause, that we're able to stop in that moment. The next time that we are in a disagreement with someone, that we can take a breath and pause, check in with ourselves, and then speak from that place. From that quiet and centered place, we then speak. So let's just, for a few moments, move into the silence. Just feeling into that knowing for yourself, for your relationships. And so gently coming back, taking another deep breath, just feeling the energy, and not just the energy, I don't mean to imply, feel the energy of the topic of disagreement and conflict, but feeling the energy of what's possible in our relationships, what's possible in our lives if we practice these principles, and how these principles make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for our communities and those around us. And then it truly does contribute to peace and nonviolence. Thank you for being with me this evening. Let peace begin with you. I hope you have a blessed night. Tomorrow will be day 42, and we'll be talking about monitoring our actions. Another great topic. Hope to be with you again tomorrow night. Thanks, everybody. Namaste.